Welcome to our chairperson and external member, Chairperson Dr. Sandeep Kumar and Dr. Abbas Nidhi, our external member, to T.S. Mishra Medical College for our very first meeting of Research Advisory Board. And I think without wasting any time, I want you all to come for lamp lighting, and thereafter we will be proceeding for the other activities. I think that will be a better way, or we can welcome you first by giving a bouquet. I think that's a good idea. Principal, and I think we need to welcome our principal. In fact, I know the time was very short, but I realized that this is something which gives us strength so that we can really move forward for our cause which we initiated now. With this, we know about the facilities and other things about TSM. So, if you look at it, we have got a very small committee of research advisory board, because with time we will be making it bigger one. But to realize one thing, that how this started, let me tell you a brief thing, that in the early days after Corona, we tried to submit a proposal to ICMR. It was a big project of 1.25 crores, but then ICMR asked for the SIRO. And to be honest, being at AIM Bhopal, I had no idea what is SIRO, approval, recognition and all. So it was not considered, not funded. Then I searched for it and we made sincere effort. Management and our principal sir and all faculty members really contributed a lot, supported the cause, and we could get the SIRO approval in the month of January, 27th Jan. And we really felt that it is an achievement for us, and now we can move forward for applying the external funding. And that time only we made this committee after discussion with Dr. Sandeep Kumar and Dr. Abbas Nidhi, and both have very cordially accepted our invitation. I know they both are very busy, and to be very honest to you, all these things have been done this meeting, because when I called Dr. Sandeep Kumar and Dr. Abbas, they said we are really very busy in the month of May and June and all. Because Dr. Sandeep is going to US in the month of June. So I realized that, sir, any day, he said 27th May, I said okay. And then I asked our principal sir, he said okay. Then I asked Dr. Abbas Nidhi sir, he said okay. So but things are going in the right direction, taking shape. And interestingly, Dr. Abbas has just arrived from Aligarh after taking an exam by Shatabdi. So interestingly, one more point which I thought is the experience of our seniors. Dr. Sandeep Kumar very clearly told that it may not be very easy for faculty members or the medical persons to come and attend the meeting in the early hours. So why don't you keep at 2 o'clock? I became little miser and I saved 15-20 more minutes. I thought we can get more time, and I put it at 1:45 to 4. He said then I have to come at 1:45. Yes sir, 15-20 minutes interaction हमारी advisory committee से होना ही है. And I am sure I have got the introduction with everybody personally also, and I will be introducing. So all these persons, you want me to tell their names and they can just stand, you know about them? Yeah. So first is Dr. Rajesh Kumar ji. He is really very dynamic person. CME and everything is being conducted by him. Dr. Niklesh Kumar, pathology and head and he is really supporting us a lot. Dr. Vivek S. Agwan. Dr. is a microbiology head and all this corona and all things he is managing with his team. Dr. Monica Gupta, she is also professor of pathology. Dr. Abhishek Agrawal, he is in a marriage, he has gone out, otherwise he was, and he is a product of KGMU. And then Dr. Rashmi Mishra, our physiology head and our young Dr. Rajna Sharma, assistant professor in biochemistry, and to be very honest, I get a lot of support from her. With this, so I'm just going to talk about, I think not take more than 5 minutes. This is our management team. इन्हीं के नाम पे हॉस्पिटल का नाम पड़ा है। नाम है डॉक्टर सतीश मिश्रा जी, जिनका की ये विजन था, and because of that, this institution started in 2015. She is mother of Dr. Mishra and a very motivating force that you should do something for the society. This is all I read about it and I have been told by everybody. And you already met Dr. Anil Agnihotri, who is his brother-in-law. Then we have got our chairperson, Mrs. Kalpana Mishra, wife of Dr. Satish Mishra. Their dynamic son, Dr. Shri Kapil Mishra, vice chairman, and his wife, Mrs. Praniti Mishra, director, nursing and paramedical. Whenever time comes, I will show you. It's very good buildings. They made very good infrastructure. Really worth appreciating that part. Dr. Shubhshri Mishra, our medical director, and you have already met Dr. Vishwanath Tripathi, and interestingly, he is interested continuing his further, degrees and all. Now, we have to understand that to do any biological research, a good infrastructure is needed. Means high-end basic instruments, animal house. We have got an animal house which will be getting functional, well-organized hospital with good patient input and almost all medical specialties with faculty having scientific temperament and dedication, attitude and teamwork. We have got good temperament, very good team, only a spark is needed, and I think this is the time we are getting a spark from our experts. I feel that we have all these traits at TSM. So it was established in 2015. We started 150 admissions of UG students per year. PG course in medical started in 2020-21. Of course, it's a Herculean task, but it has been achieved. And 5 departments have been given PG seats. Later on this year also we got 21 and 22, a good number. And when I discussed with our committee members and later on with our chairperson, they said yes, all the PG students, सभी PG students हैं ना यहाँ. So it was something very important for you all. Now, just coming to the infrastructure, we have got all the molecular biology related infrastructure, research lab of biochemistry. This is central research lab, which is also equipped with PCR and other equipments, ELISA reader, etc. This is our central lab only with deep freezers and everything. This is a pathology in totality. You can see the collage. Biochemistry and immunology labs. All the equipments are there. We are doing all the tests routinely. And interestingly, Dr. Niklesh is the director, and Dr. Rachna is looking after the biochemistry things. She is our good quality manager also, and she has done a good job in Corona time. Histopathology lab, frozen section. Also, this RT-PCR also we have got because of Corona and everything. So I'm just little getting interested that we can make use of that or not. We will be asking you all. So we have some future programs for project writing. Metastasis, I read a lot and I found out that we can really look for some mechanistic actions in metastasis. Role of surfactant protein, smokers, asthmatics and COPD. A project is already in a good shape. Survey of post-COVID patients to study role of blood group. some very interesting observation which I thought I should share with you. After reading so many papers, I realized the blood group O and B plus were quite safe during the time of COVID, and it was the A plus and AB. They suffered a lot, and more comorbidities and more deaths and everything happened in the AB. And so I want to have a good survey. I talked to our epidemiology professor, and making a team, we will see how we can go ahead for this. And I already tried to collaborate with KGMU. We have got an MOU. CDI, IITR, SGPGI and CBMR in SGPGI campus. I talked to the persons at Himjani, I talked to AIMS Bhopal and Delhi, and I am very hopeful that we will be having a good collaboration with all these institutions. As I told that I submitted a proposal in ICMR, metastasis vitamin C, supplementation case control study, but after lot of efforts, I made it, but somehow that gave me a lead to go for SIM. Of course, one thing is this project is almost in a good shape. We will be making it a full project. The concept note is there. Can I move forward? And this SIRO recognition is because of that I have to work out for SIRO, and advantage of this is it's an apex body promoting and organizing research, maintaining all standards of research, proper records of inputs from different organizations, institutions in the country. Earlier it was not mandatory for government organizations, whereas it is now mandatory for them to get this recognition. AIMS Bhopal also recently got it. Why I am telling AIMS Bhopal? Because our Dr. Sandeep Kumar is our founder director of AIMS Bhopal. So he will be happy that they are progressing very well. Having SIRO recognition, which is valid for 3 years, is an asset, and we recently got recognition, as I already told you, and we can apply for the external funding. The most important requirement is to do audit of R&D expenditure, and it was their main objection that you are not doing any audit. I said we were not doing it, but I promise you from now onwards we will be doing it. That was something, it was a tough thing to do, but I could somehow convince them. And publishing annual reports, of course, there are many benefits in income tax and rebates in import of equipment and chemicals and reagents of our research. So, the moment we will move forward, we will be in a position to certainly achieve better things. And this is the approval letter, and these are the terms and conditions they are given. And so, I think with all this, thank you for your attention, and I will request to moving forward. Any questions or anything you would like to ask me? I try to make it as simple as possible. So this is the committee, and our Dr. Sandeep Kumar, who is the chairperson of RAB, MS, FRCS, Edinburgh, PhD, Wales, MMSC, Newcastle, and founder Dr. AIMS Bhopal, is going to talk how to get started with research and outline research strategy. Before going for that, I will be just briefly telling about his career, his CV. Dr. Sandeep Kumar is a founder director of AIMS Bhopal, currently practicing surgery at Lucknow, ex-professor of surgery KGMU Lucknow, gold medalist MBBS and MS MLN Medical College Allahabad, FRCS from Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh, PhD from the University of Cardiff, Wales. Okay. And second page is, he's in the interesting thing, anybody in Georgian, he has written, he's being a very multi-fallacious personality, he's written a humorous book called RAB. So, so much to talk about it.
Now, why did I interrupt and have come here? Because certainly it was my turn. First of all, my greetings, my thanks and my heartfelt gratitude to Principal Dr. Srivastav, who's come from Meerut, Professor Abbas, who's a colleague, has been a colleague for 30 years in King George's Medical University. In fact, above all, a very great human being, a highly pedigreed doctor, and a very respectable researcher with whom we have 2 publications also. Professor Goyal, whom I have known since the days he was working at IITR, and thank you for inviting me. I'm not taking the names. I know Rajesh Muazi and members of the advisory board. Thank you again for making me the chairman of the research advisory board of this institution, and I assure you that I would try and do my best. Now why have I given this slide is 1980 I did my master's in surgery from Allahabad, and I traveled to it on my suppressed and not takes the taking voice. Let me know if you hear it well now, because I don't have to bend every time. That's the place to be. Is that okay? You get it? All right. So, now, I did my master's in surgery in 1980. And somebody came from England and from Wales, Cardiff, Professor Hughes, and took me to Cardiff. Did my fellowship. And my father, my grandfather, they all traveled with me. We are vegetarians and they all wanted me to come back. I said, okay, baat ho gaya, this ho gaya, classes ho gaya, but. Prof. Hughes said to me, you wrote a little paper, it came in Lancet, why don't you do a PhD? And I wrote a letter, those are the days you write long aerograms. So I wrote a letter to my father in 1982 that look, my professor here in Cardiff says that I should do a PhD in Cardiff. He said, what is PhD? I'm a surgeon. I've done a FARCS, I've done this, come back. I went to Professor Hughes and I said, why should I do PhD? He said 300 people returned to all over the world with a FARCS from the Royal Colleges at Edinburgh, Glasgow and London. Only one would return with a PhD. So much against the wishes of my uncle who was a professor at that time in medicine and my aunt who was a professor, those were the days there were no faculty jobs, and it was this time when I was a child that when I become a doctor I will join a faculty job. I will not simply become a private clinical surgical mazdoor and I will join a faculty job because my father was in faculty, my mother was a teacher, my grandfather was a teacher. So we knew nothing but being medical teachers. My wife is a medical teacher, my son is a medical teacher now in New Delhi. So there were no jobs. That was the time there was a lull. There were only 5 or 7 medical colleges in Uttar Pradesh. Jhansi and Gorakhpur were the recent ones. And there was no hope that a medical college would come. Private colleges were only known in Karnataka. And there was no way I would have gone to Karnataka. So I would have not stayed abroad because I was not an economic migrant. So I started doing my PhD. Published a few papers, good journals, good impact. Came for an interview. 4 years, no jobs were there. All my friends were languishing as a pool officer or somewhere as a senior resident in Delhi, NCR areas. Somebody had gone to Mumbai corporate hospitals. And there was this interview in the Public Service Commission. And there were 16 people, there were 13 people who appeared for a lecture and surgery interview for KGMC and the state medical colleges. KGMC at that time was a part of the state medical college. 16 people were a year senior or junior too, and they were all toppers of their respective batches. I won't take names here, but they're all known names in this country. They were all very sheesh type of people. The interview took place, there was a high profile selection committee with Dr. Tarachand, Dr. P.C. Dubey, and some director of medical education, the chairman. And I was selected as number 1, only on the strength of the research that I had done, because everybody else was equally qualified, equally powerful. So research did allow me a lot of things that would have not come had I just done my other degree. My duty today is, as assigned to me by Dr. Goel and Dr. Srivastava, is to convince you at the end of 40 minutes from now, it's 2:30, 50 minutes, thank you. In 50, 40, 50, whenever you start getting bored, I can perceive that you're getting bored, so I will stop. I know when to stop anyway. To take up research on your own. And you can now put my slides. भैया slide वाले, आपका नाम क्या है? Nikhil slide laga. So this guy is Nikhil. Okay. Why research? And if you do decide to do research, how should I get around? Why should I do research? My first answer to this question is that all of you do research. When you go on holiday and you've been to one place and you think you have to go, when you choose your holiday destination, when you choose an airline, when you choose a hotel, you do a little research. And this is a cross-sectional research. That you look at the hotels in the area, you want to go to Nainital, you want to go to Jim Carpet, you look for us. When you do wedding of your son or daughter, you do research to find out who's a good caterer, who's a good decorator, who's a good printer. So we all do. Research is a part of an innate ability of all human beings. So when you are a surgeon or you are a physician or a pathologist, whenever you report something, you always have this, your experience at the back of your mind. The moment you bring out your experience and you regress it in your mind, that last time I saw this cell and this was not the right thing, you're doing research. Now, if you bring it to the formal method of doing it and start writing it and start analyzing it as per the analytical tools available, you become a researcher. So that's all is being said. It's not that you're going to do something or discover something new. It's all that you become analytical. We go ahead here. So why research? If I'm able to convince you that is why you do research. ये नहीं pointer नहीं है. आगे वाला. Okay. All right. So when you do research, you cross three rings. One is you decide what research, what is my research question? What is a relevant research question? What is the gap in the knowledge? Whether that relevant research question is how many people died of COVID in Lucknow. And of all the people I can get hold of dying of COVID in Lucknow, which is a city with about 30 lakhs of population, 3 million population, can I do a verbal autopsy? Can I go to CMO office? We have a professor of FMT here and a pathologist, and get their names and addresses and phone numbers. It was all there. And can I ring them? It is now known that 80% of the people know their blood group. And can I ring up their wife, their children and next of their kin and ask them, did you really have COVID? Did you die of an incidental illness during COVID, or did you die of COVID? Did your kith or kin? And what blood group did he have? You may have a response of 20% may not answer the phone call, may get very, 20% may say, I don't know blood group, 20% may shut you up, so there will be a 60% attrition. Say you rang up 1,000 people, 60% attrition, 40% is your response rate. So of the 40%, if 90% were AB group or AB minus or O minus group, not B plus O plus, you have the hypothesis tested, what Dr. TC what. So I gave you a research design for a research question. He just posed, and it immediately occurred to me, how can we do this research? And this is epidemiology. So his idea of an impression, back of the mind, looking at it, reading some paper, my mind wandering, you have a research question that people with blood group B and blood group O were protected against death or major consequences of COVID-19. So can I do this research? Is there an easier method? And that's what I just alluded to is a research design. So you have a research question, you have a research hypothesis. Now what's the hypothesis here? people in Lucknow during the months of March, April, May, June 2021 who died from COVID illness on verbal autopsy, this is known as bringing up asking question is known as verbal autopsy, would be less commonly belonging to blood group A and blood group O and blood group B. Simple. So you have the hypothesis and you have a design. So those are the three links that you cross, and that's how you get started with the research. So you have a relevant research question, you have a relevant doable hypothesis, you calculate what minimum numbers will be required, you look at the attritions that will happen when you do this kind of research, which is an assumptive picture. All economic and medical research, when you calculate the relevant sample size, that you don't get a chance variable, and if the variable you get is statistically significant, 1 in 1,000 can be an outlier, then you call it a relevant sample size. You look at all the biases, responder bias, non-responder bias, there are about 60 types of biases, and you calculate a sample size, you do research, and if you put it all together, you have a publication, and if you've done it well, you have a good publication, and you have a career ahead of you. So that's what the three rings here represent: a research question, a doable research hypothesis, a research design. After this, there are two more rings. One is analysis of results, the other is report writing and publishing. So you cross 5 rings when you do research. Next patient please is what you do here. You sit in your OPD, you get your salary package, press the button, next patient comes, you're sitting in a private sector, somebody puts the fee in your pocket, and you sit in the government sector or a salary sector, you get your monthly salary. And you do your best to diagnose, and you learn your clinical arts of taking history, writing down history, doing your physical examination, and then doing certain investigations, arriving at a diagnosis, determining the treatment, and then administering the treatment is what you've all learned as a doctor, is what you are here for. Now what happens when you do only this exercise of next patient please? Look at this, a surgical background. I've taken the example of orthopedic surgeons because of all the least research is done by orthopedic surgeons. It's worldwide. So they're the real, authority type of people. But with all regard to them. See, I carefully tabulated 550 patients. Now he's doing research. I did 300 operations A in 220 patients. I did operation B due to hospital policy. Operation A was done in public hospital. Operation B was done in private hospital. So 300 he did operation A. And so what is wrong here? This is a referral bias, huge referral bias. See, when I do work in my private practice, when you go and work in a hospital which is a high-end corporate hospital, Apollo, Vedanta, blah, blah, what happens is people who have that kind of a paying capacity, if you sit in the first AC of a train, only the peer group would be those who are paying fare for the first AC. There may be an occasional person who didn't get a second tier, 2-tier ticket has paid extra money and gone to first AC. So you have a referral bias. The type of patient coming to the private hospital as opposed to the public hospital may be different. Now, what is Dr. Yadav saying? I do operation A or B as I choose to do. Now, this is a kind of a cynical statement. And these groups again are not compared. What is Dr. Gandhi saying? That 95 to 98 I did operation in 200 patients, and since then I have used operation A only. I've stopped doing operation B. So maybe his technique of doing Operation B was not good. Maybe he bought an instrument for which Operation A become more easy. So again, you have biases in the system. What would research do? Research will make you give away these biases. Research makes you extremely brilliant person who respects other person's value judgment and who learns to randomize, who learns to pick by random number, who knows the virtues of sampling and who shuns away biases. And that is why you should do research. In your personal life, you will give away biases. In your academic life, you will give away biases. Otherwise, this is the kind of talk that you will hear. When somebody talks like this, if you have done research, you will simply sit and smile. At an appropriate time, you will reply to that person, look, that's not the way to talk. Science and epidemiology will teach you to randomize, to be observant, and have a random sample and then talk. We need to do research. I think I've spoken about it. Yes, my answer is everybody, howsoever humble this institution, you're lucky, you've got a lot of equipment, and nothing stops you from doing 50% of my published research out of 120 papers are purely epidemiological tools, questionnaire-based research. So nothing stops you from doing epidemiological research. Who needs to do research? The answer is everybody. If you are a caterer, you need to do research. Who would eat my food? My son has started a startup. He's tested about 5 models. He's all the time doing research. Which model will work? You open a startup. So everybody, my answer is everybody needs to do research. If you're a simple, humble man doing some personal minion job, you would know to do research. Today, what my sahab will eat, what should I cook? Can I do research? Yes. What is the need? What is indeed research and how shall I do it? So my duty now onwards is to answer these questions. What is indeed research and how shall I do it? Now there is another, I saw it in, there were people who were doing research, and my father, who was the son of a poor man, self-made, became a professor in a medical college, and a very kind man, a very humane person, but had this awe, and that's why he got towards people who did research. He thought those were the bearded leftist kind of people who talk some kind of a language, and they had this some kind of a complex that everybody else is just a Majdoor. And he just did that much enough research, give a lecturer se reader, reader se professor ho gaye. And that was not research, that was an effort, wheeling and dealing to publish papers. Because he didn't learn, he wasn't taught by somebody who wasn't like him. He had absolutely no jealousy or nothing against people who were doing this. So there are people who are market mongers. People are from research, draw economic credits. They kind of develop a reputation, and there are market mongers of research. They buy travel and different kind of respectability. So that's exactly your immediate value, but that's also there. If you do research, you can earn money. You can earn money. Then there are people who do research for self-satisfaction. So if you do research for self-satisfaction, so let's concentrate on that. what happens? Just I publish 20 papers in my life, I go up the ladder I'm talking to people who are in the medical college, so I'm limiting my talk not to private. A lot of people in the corporate today, if you go to Association of Surgeons of India, Pediatric Association, 80% of the papers presented today are from people in the private practice. I'm the chief editor of a major journal today. 60% of the papers being published high quality in the Indian Journal of Surgery, very high quality journal now, are from private practitioners. So the research has gone into the private hands and the labs available. MedGenome would do anything, next generation sequencing, anything for you. So what do you gain? Now, how many of you are postgraduates? Raise your hand. MD, MS students. Alright. And how many of you are guides or potential guides or likely to become guides for these postgraduates? Raise your hands. So you're all. So, research by induction. Here you are, Professor Head of Pathology, Monica Gupta, and here are your MD students, Monica. Right? And you're going to impress them with your microscope, and they're going to hold on to your hand, and you'll have to give them a topic, they will bring it to you. This is research by induction. It's a part of the PhD program, MDS, MS program. You'll have to induce your postgraduate into doing research. That's the research by induction. You will induce. It's now compulsory. You join the professor's job here, and they have got the MDMS recognized. Dr. Goyal has now got you want to do extramural grants. I have a DSIR recognition for this college. I got my accounts audited. I got my research review board in place. I've got a chairman, I've got a vice chairman. Now you've got to do research. So it's mandated on you almost. Today, the whole strategy on the part of Dr. Srivastava and Dr. Goyal is to mandate on you, toko on you, to do research. Right? And that's why I'm here doing the advocacy. Right? So that's the research by induction. You become my age, boarded, wife starts living with children more than with you. What do? You sit with your own data and deduce. यार मैंने तो 5,000 hernia operate करे, चलो अपना result देखें. That's research by deduction. When you look at your data, when you look at what you've done, there's an English word called serendipity. Anybody would get up and tell me the meaning of serendipity? Anybody, faculty or student or postgraduate?
By chance.
By chance, brilliant. By chance. What is by chance?
Any discovery or any finding.
इसमें क्या दिख रहा है? एक अंग्रेजी में कहावत है, भूसे में सुई ढूंढना. Looking for needle in the haystack. ठीक है सर? कोई ढूंढता है, मेरी सुई ढूंढो रे बालमा, मेरी सुई खो गई भूसे में. झुमका तो है नहीं कि मिल जाएगा, चमकेगा. कोई ढूंढता है. Serendipity is that when you start looking for the needle in the haystack, जब आप भूसे में सुई ढूंढे, and you find the beautiful farmer's daughter in that bhusa, that's serendipity, and that's what's happened here. But what happened? What is there in this story? What's the morale of the story? The story doesn't end there. The story is that you have the audacity कि तुमसे फार्मर ने कहा कि जा अपने भूसे में ढूंढ मेरी सुई. या फार्मर की बीबी ने कहा और आप ढूंढने लगे. मैं तो मना कर दूंगा यार, भूसे में सुई मिलेगी, इतना बड़ा भूसा तो नहीं हो कर दिया. But you had the audacity to do that, and then you get that beautiful girl. So the word serendipity means that everybody saw an apple dropping. Everybody sat in a tank, but it needed the wisdom and the thought of Newton to look for the G of the gravity when the apple fell from the tree. Archimedes were under the threat by the king to tell him that the Mukuk had pure gold. Everybody had known that there is a buoyancy in the water. When he goes to Black Sea, he can swim easily. When he goes to a normal sea, he drowns out. But it was the pursuing mind of the Archimedes that through that he discovered the relative density and the density. He was looking for the needle in the haystack. So the word serendipity is not a freak chance, freak luck. It's a luck that comes to a person who's working in it. Dr. Ranjan was working with a cathode ray tube. It happened by a chance that the hand got there. There was a plate which could take the X-rays, and the X-rays and the Ranjanogram was discovered. Somebody was playing with bacteria that suddenly a colony disappeared and penicillin was discovered. It wasn't, the discovery of penicillin doesn't happen to somebody else. It happened to the person who was actually growing bacteria in a plate. And he could see the colony. Many people might have seen the colony disappear. There was a crescent of the colony disappearing, but to discover that there was a penicillin, this was another antibacterial produced by another bacteria, and the penicillin was discovered. So that's what the word serendipity is. So when would serendipity occur? When you will continuously tinker with research. If you will not tinker with research, the serendipity won't come to you, the farmer's daughter won't come to you unless you look for the needle in the haystack. Is the word serendipity clear to you? So what does research do to you? What has it done to me? If I say Dr. Abbas Ali Mehdi is a most humane person here, it's of course his genes, it's of course his family, it's of course the Tehzeeb of Lucknow, he's a Lucknowite, but it's research which makes him humane. Research, when you become a surgical or medicinal majdoor, just stroke the chest, say patient, take your stethoscope, write a prescription, you end up. It will make you develop a critical thinking, it will encourage originality, it will encourage self-evaluation, it will encourage your oral and written expression, which you have always been trying to, which you didn't do earlier. Many friends and people I know, boys and girls, I can name at least 50 in my life who came to MS surgery with me, and their written and oral expression was just sufficient that they could understand the textbook. They worked with me, they published 3-4 papers, and they're not tough when they write, you see their English. You know, people from BHU have traveled to America, write full textbooks. So the expression of writing and speaking skills tremendously improved even if they were not there in your high school during your intermediate. If you come to medical school, you would have seen that, sir. जो बच्चे आए आपके पास कुछ नहीं जानते थे, आज हम 70 साल के हो गए, वो 50 साल के हैं, 20 साल, 60 साल के हैं, हमसे कहीं ज़्यादा अच्छे पेपर लिख रहे हैं, कहीं अच्छे लिख रहे हैं. So, if you want to develop your skills, that's the place. टीम वर्क डेवलप करते हैं. टीम वर्क आप क्लिनिकल मेडिसिन में भी सीखते हैं, नर्स के साथ काम करते हैं, प्रेसिडेंट के साथ काम करते हो, अफसर के साथ काम करते हो, डिसएग्रीमेंट के माहौल में काम करते हो. पर रिसर्च में चूंकि सेल्फ मोटिवेटेड है, पेशेंट मोटिव, जब आप पेशेंट का काम कर रहे हैं तो पेशेंट का काम नर्स को भी करना, उसको भी तनख्वाह इसलिए मिल रही है, रेजिडेंट को भी करना, उसको भी मिल रही है. रिसर्च आपके मोटिवेशन पे है, तो अब आपको नर्स से भी काम कराना है कि रिसर्च का कागज भर दे, रेजिडेंट से भी कहना बेटा देखो एमएस की थीसिस नकली नहीं लिखनी है, तो आप टीम लीडर डेवलप हो गए. वहां तो आप नर्स को डांट सकते हैं, मरीज का काम नहीं करो, हम शिकायत कर देंगे सुपरिटेंडेंट साहब से. यहाँ किससे शिकायत करो? सुपरिटेंडेंट करेगा रिसर्च डॉक्टर साहब आप अपनी करिए, पहले मरीज का काम करें. So that is why it's your development of developing your team. It develops transdisciplinary thinking. Otherwise, we all live in our own box. We all are made up in our own, and it makes you a very humane person. So those are the three things: research question, hypothesis generation. How do you make a research question? Research question is built on experience. यार हमें लगता है कि ये ऐसे होता है. That's built on your experience. There's a regression here going in your temporal lobe. Temporal lobe में memory तो है ही, it's frontal lobe में तो RAM लगा है, पर जो आपका memory card वो यहाँ temporal lobe में है. Temporal lobe में आप जैसे ABCD सोच चुके हैं. Temporal lobe से आप memory को transfer करते हो, frontal lobe में लाते हो तो regress करती है. और regress करती है ऐसे नहीं ऐसे होगा. चाहे आप ड्राइविंग कर रहे हो तो इधर एक्सीलेटर बढ़ा के निकाल लो, यहाँ ब्रेक लगा लो. You're regressing all the time. Be alert to new ideas, journal articles, rapid advances, new trends, new diagnostic tools, new surgical techniques. Keep your imagination roaming. All of you will get an original research question. There is never a dearth of a research question if you follow this. It's built on experience. What is a good research question? One which is doable. ऐसा research question पूछ लिया आपने कि भाई जो है क्या मैं सूर्य पे जा सकता हूँ, तो आप एस्ट्रोनॉट हो या आप नासा वासा में काम कर रहे हैं. आपके परिवेश में, in your own garb, will I be able to carry out this research? That's very important. It should be interesting, novel, it should be ethical, it should be relevant. बहुत सारे unethical research question. I once got into an ethical research question. I started एक दिन frustration में मैंने कहा जितनी GMC में fraud thesis है मैं publish करता हूँ paper. And I literally did that work very secretively in my office. And I started discovering biases. And I traveled to a friend of mine who's a great name in research, lives in Connecticut. I had to go to US. And I said, I'm doing this. He held my hand, took me to a restaurant in New York, and he said, don't do it. So he said, you're doing good research, you do your own work, don't get bothered. And there are papers, you go and read DNA, fraud in research, there are lots of papers on fraud in research. So you have to look at the ethics of research. Developing research question needs a problem, and you should also have a solution, and you should have a primary question, and there will be a secondary question. It's a bit loaded, but you will soon understand. I think it's 30 minutes. The hypothesis in research is usually stated in the null form. Why it is done that? This is a mathematical issue. If you have आप लोगों ने सारस देखा है सर? Swan. If you have a hypothesis that all swans are white, can you prove this research? If you have a hypothesis, if you have a research question, are all swans white? You have a hypothesis, all swans are white. The implicate research design would be to observe all swans right from taiga tundra to Antarctica on the globe, and then say, yes, I have seen all swans in Africa, in South Africa, in the Indian continent, in China, in America, and they are all white. So usually, when you write down an hypothesis, a positive form of hypothesis becomes impossible to prove. This is a ganit. So the hypothesis would be not all swans are white. Sighting of one black swan would prove the hypothesis that not all swans are white. Alright? So in medical science, all hypotheses are written in the null form. Why they are written? I will use a very mundane example, but that's what you should understand why hypothesis is written. H1 is equal to H0. H0 is the null hypothesis. H1 is the hypothesis that you wanted to know. And then you should give an alternative hypothesis. When you compare two groups, that one beta blocker, say atenolol, and you want to compare it with propranolol or metoprolol. So you either have a hypothesis of equivalence, of efficacy, but cost factor and side effects may be your secondary research questions when you're comparing two antibiotics two antihypertensives. You may have a hypothesis of superiority. Here comes the pharmacologist and brings a cotelol. And he says this cotelol is not khota, is better than any metoprolol, propranolol, sotalol, etinolol. And we have hypothesis that it would have in a lesser dose greater efficacy in terms of as an antihypertensive drug, lesser side effects, and no male type incompetence, male ejection incompetence, and then you test that hypothesis this is a hypothesis of superiority. So N1 is bigger than N2. Or non-superiority. You bring another beta blocker which is as good as the existing one, but it's much cheaper. So you say efficacy is same, but look at my cost. My cost is much less. So that's a cost-effective comparison of the two modalities. So either of this is research. Either of this is research. What is the universe of disease? You can do research in all these cases. There are three universes of disease. Proven efficacy, currently treatable, only QOL issues. Diabetes, hypertension, schizophrenia, cancer are currently treatable. More or less, some cancers are not at all treatable, but there are new targeted treatments coming and they're treatable. Some by surgery, some by radiotherapy, some by chemotherapy, some by combined modality, some by lifestyle dietary modifications. Some are controllable, some are treatable. In certain conditions, there is an unproven efficacy which is somewhat treatable. You have a very aggressive neuroendocrine tumor and you have this drug nivolumab, which is an immunotherapy, and the trials are showing 2.5 months median survival benefit. You have this drug acetazolamide treating some very aggressive brain tumor and it has some survival benefit. So you want to see whether by changing this drug or by changing the dose or by changing, this is known as repurposing the drug, remodeling the drug, can I improve the median survival? Or can I have a subgroup of patients by doing a molecular genetics or molecular analysis in these brain tumor patients which will have a better survival and a subgroup where I can predict that this drug will be less effective. So they found, okay, fine, PDL1 is that one particular target, and if you have PDL1, this drug aploxolib will probably work better. So that's the kind of a research. So those are the two researches people do. Then you have a patient with a muscular dystrophy where no treatment is available. Maybe there's a very expensive drug costing 10, 15, 20 crores now, which is available. So this is your diabetes, hypertension, malaria, fever. This is your unproven efficacy. These are unavoidable. So you have to choose your universe in which you would like, or disease in which you would like to do your research. Now what are the types of research is given here? When do you use this research is given here in the red. When you are asked by your principal to write a report, it's usually a case series or a case report. आप अपना एग्जाम का रिजल्ट लिख के भेजिए. MCI inspection is a case series or a case report. MCI जो आपने SIRO clarification लिया है, recognition लिया है DST का, Department of Science and Technology का, it's a huge report that you have filled of your audited account of the facilities, of the infrastructure, who the founder of this. It's a case report. It's a case report of TSM Medical College. You make it for a clinical patient, it's a case report. You assemble you have a university, you have 10 colleges here, a college of pharmacy, a college of engineering college, it becomes a case series. Prevalence, again, a cross-sectional survey done over a huge area. What's the prevalence of smoking in medical students and chewing tobacco or gutka in TSM Medical College is prevalence. Study incidence, how do you calculate incidence? Is number of new cases over one calendar year divided by Rajesh Kumar will not answer this. You have to answer this. Incidence is, you will only teach mid-year population. एक साल में लखनऊ की 1 लाख की जनसंख्या में कितनी महिलाओं को ब्रेस्ट कैंसर, नया ब्रेस्ट कैंसर उत्पन्न होता है, डायग्नोज होती, नॉट कितनों को ब्रेस्ट कैंसर का इलाज चल रहा है. That's the incidence. New emerging cases in a year divided by mid-year population from 1st January to 30th December. Okay, causation. What causes it? Precedes effect. ठीक है? Causality मालूम है आप लोगों को? Causality तो पढ़ा है आप लोगों ने. Bradford Hill criteria of causality. एक मर्डर हुआ, मर्डर में लाश के पास 4 मीनार सिगरेट का बट मिला, एक आदमी मिला उसके पास मर्डर का वेपन मिला, उसके पैंट पे खून जो मिला उसका डीएनए टेस्ट और जो विक्टिम था जो जिया उसका डीएनए मैच कर गया. वो जो आदमी था वो बड़ा अजीब सा पागल टाइप का खेत में बीच में रहता था, उसी के खेत के बगल के खेत में वेपन मिल गया, उस वेपन पे उसके उंगली के निशान भी मिल गए. वो 4 मीनार सिगरेट पीता था, डेड बॉडी के पास 4 मीनार सिगरेट थी. अगाथा क्रिस्टी की नॉवल है और वो एक्विट हो गया कोर्ट से. क्यों? He was not the cause of, he wasn't the murderer. Can anybody tell me? Somebody has read that novel. This is exactly what is cause and effect in medicine. Cause precedes effect. Remove the cause, effect will go away. Alright? न मच्छर हो न मलेरियल पैरासाइट हो तो मलेरिया नहीं होगा. हो सकता है बाहर से कोई आ गया. Alright? That's, I'm giving the hint to that story of Agatha Christie's novel. Alright? So, cause precedes the effect. Remove the, greater the dose of the cause, more is the effect. The Bradford Hill criteria for cause and effect. Cause is associated with effect. Cause और effect साथ साथ चलते हैं. जहाँ प्रदूषण वहाँ लंग कैंसर, जहाँ धुआं जाता, जहाँ पीपीओ ज्यादा, जहाँ पे कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड ज्यादा, वहाँ लंग कैंसर ज्यादा. Cause and effect. But what is the biggest association between cause and effect is biological plausibility. And illogical research कैसे हो जाती है? अमेरिकन वुमन इतनी सी लिपस्टिक है तो हमारी महिला तो साड़ी से पोंछ लेगी, उंगली से पोंछ के फिर उंगली यहाँ पोंछ लेगी. अमेरिकन वुमन नया टिश्यू निकाल के पोंछेगी, टिश्यू फेंक देगी. मैकडॉनल्ड में आप एक टिश्यू पेपर उठाएंगे, इतने उठाएंगे, इतने फेंक देगी. टॉयलेट में इतना सारा टिश्यू पेपर फेंक के आई होगी, हाथ धोने के बाद 10-12. So per American woman, the tissue paper consumption is 120 grams a day. Out of 1 lakh American women, 300 suffer from breast cancer. The tissue paper consumption of Indian women is less than 5 grams a day. Only 20 out of 100,000 Indian women suffer from breast cancer. Use of tissue paper causes breast cancer. Problem? Sara association, perfect association. Use of extra tissue paper causes breast cancer. Any problem with this? Iti Siddha, hypothesis tested. Go do the calculation again. Fine, prove me wrong. They will go and observe. But direct observation method, cross-sectional study, cohort study. American woman is using tissue paper everywhere. She is a baby. You have a new bahu in my house. She would wipe the nose of the baby in the lap 20 times, 20 tissue papers. I spent 40 tissue paper boxes. They would, in my house, Amazon sends 40 tissue paper boxes every week now. So biological plausibility is very important. There has to be a biological plausibility and ecological plausibility, plausibility. Alright? जब वो मर्डर इन्वेस्टिगेशन हुआ तो देखा गया कि एक जो आदमी मरा पड़ा था, वो जो उसका भाई था, वो उसके इंश्योरेंस का $1 या $1 मिलियन का मालिक बनने वाला था। ही कंट्राइव, और एक पागल सा आदमी खेत में रहता था, उसने पूरा मर्डर प्लांट कर दिया, मारा उसने था। So that novel of Agatha Christie does tell you that with everything, बुद्धू जज होता तो उसको सजा दे देता, बेचारा भी वो पागल घूम रहा अपना, उसके यहाँ खून लगा, वो नहीं हो खंजर पड़ा उसी के लिए, वो वही निकला, उसने डेड बॉडी देखी, वहीं अपनी सिगरेट बुझा दी। Everything was there. So great association. If you get Spearman correlation, any kind of a parametric, non-parametric correlation doesn't prove causality. Therefore, causality studies in medicine are extremely difficult to prove. And you can get false results. मोटे होने से breast cancer हो जाता है, मछली खाने से breast cancer हो जाता है, contraceptive pill पे. I just had a paper from AIDS, New Delhi, not just a few years ago. उसमें तो contraceptive pill खाया नहीं कि महिला के 3 साल में breast cancer हुआ. हमने कहा भैया ये क्या कारण है? हमारी बीवी ने 20 साल खाई contraceptive pill. So such associations are so free. Please be aware of this causation studies. Usefulness of a diagnostic test: sensitivity, specificity, positive predictive value, negative predictive value. Okay. Treatment efficacy, outcome, and health services evaluation. So, इतना पढ़ा के हम बात कर देते हैं. Anybody knows what is normalcy? मोनिका normalcy समझती है? पैथोलॉजी के प्रोफेसर हो? नहीं बैठिए प्रोफेसर. What is abnormal? आपकी हाइट 5 फीट 2 इंच है, नॉर्मल है. कहाँ लिखा है 5 फीट 8 इंच की हरियाणा की? What is normalcy? Is normalcy mean mode median? 3 सेंट्रल टेंडेंसीज होती है, सिग्मा एक्स अपॉन एन. यहाँ जितने लोग बैठे हैं सबकी हाइट जोड़ के अगर 70 लोग हैं 70 से डिवाइड कर दीजिए, मीन आ गया. रैंक कर दीजिए डेटा को, बीच वाला उठा लीजिए, मीडियन आ गया. सबकी 5 फीट 6 इंच के लड़के हैं, 5 फीट 4 इंच की लड़कियां हैं, ज्यादातर लोग 5 फीट 6 इंच के हैं. मोड आ गया 5 फीट. मोस्ट फ्रीक्वेंट नंबर in a cohort is the mode. Mean, mode, median are known as 3 central tendencies. उसका जो है normal distribution होता है. तो can you say that the central tendency is the normalcy? 80 से 120 या 80 से 110 या 70 से 110 फास्टिंग ब्लड शुगर मिलीग्राम पर डेसिलीटर नॉर्मल होता है. ये कहाँ लिखा है? गीता में लिखा, कुरान में लिखा, अमृतवाणी हुई, आकाशवाणी हुई, कहाँ लिखा है? किसने ये नॉर्मल डिटरमिन किया? How does normal? I'm telling you what is the normal, because new parameters are coming. Normalcy is very interesting study. Why I'm telling you these things is it will evoke your interest in research. So normalcy क्या है? I have coined myself a definition of normalcy, which Dr. Rajesh Kumar will be kind enough to disagree if he wants to. फॉर एग्जाम्पल कोलेस्ट्रॉल या ब्लड प्रेशर. मैं 60 साल का 65 साल का हो रहा हूँ, मेरा मेरे पास इतनी सारी दवाएं हैं, सब जानता हूँ मैं और पढ़ भी सकता हूँ. मैं अपना ब्लड प्रेशर 110/60 रख सकता हूँ मजे से. और आजकल मैंने 120/80 रखा हुआ है सुबह से शाम तक का. मैं 140/90 रख के बिल्कुल तब भी नॉर्मल जाऊँगा डॉक्टर साहब, ठीक है यार तुम्हारी इस उम्र में ठीक है, क्या रखूँ 110/70 रखो. आप फिजिशियन हैं आप लोग? सॉरी यार तुमने फीमर की लंबाई है. तो कितना ब्लड प्रेशर मैं रखूं? 65 साल का आदमी, दवाइयां उपलब्ध, बिल्कुल हार्मलेस दवाइयां. खूब सारे सार्टन्स हैं, खूब सारे डायबिटिक्स हैं, खूब सारे कैल्शियम चैनल ब्लॉकर्स हैं, खूब सारे बीटा ब्लॉकर्स हैं. कुछ भी खा पू के 120 70 रखे हैं, कितना रखे? 110 70 रखे हैं. What will be normal for me, doctor? So normalcy is that parameter within its diagonal or variation which is associated with least amount of adverse events. मैं इतना पीटीपीसीआर इतनी एस्पिरिन खाऊं कि मेरे कोरोनरी में आर्टरी में क्लॉगिंग ना हो, इतना पीटीपीसीआर ना. मैं इतना ब्लड प्रेशर रखूं कि मैं 120 साल तक जीऊं, मेरी आर्टरीज में एथेरोस्क्लेरोसिस ना हो. मैं इतना ब्लड शुगर रखूं कि मेरे गुर्दे से प्रोटीन और चीनी न चले. सो नॉर्मैलिटी in medical science is that parameter which is associated with the least amount of untoward effect and the best of the longevity, whether it is my cholesterol, whether it is my blood sugar, whether it is my uric acid, whether it is my calcium. All right? It so happens that normalcy coincides very well with the central tendencies of the mid-mode beating. अगर यहाँ जितने लोग बैठे हैं तो सब लोगों का ब्लड प्रेशर जो है नापे और जोड़े, सिस्टोलिक अलग डायस्टोलिक अलग, तो नॉर्मली आता है, लगभग नॉर्मल के रेंज में. क्योंकि हाइपरटेंसिव बैठा हुआ कहीं क्लिनिक में आके बैठा हुआ, एक आध हाइपरटेंसिव हुआ तो एक आध का 110 होगा, नीचे 90 पे बैठा होगा, तो वो मीन मोड मीडियन बराबर है. So normalcy usually is a central tendency measure, but for an individual you will have to define the normalcy. So that's the normalcy research. अगर नया पैरामीटर सुधीर गोयल साहब की लैब से निकल के आ गया है कि आप इतनी नॉर्मलसी होनी चाहिए. अब वो हमारे यहाँ एक हमारे दोस्त है, कॉकटू पालते हैं, वो मार उनको सांप खा रहा था तो उन्होंने केज लगा दिया, केज में पेंट कर दिया, और वो बीमार हो गया तो इतना सारा क्रोमियम निकल आया उसके और मरकरी निकल आया, लोहा खा गया, क्रोमियम खा गया. अब कॉकटू की नॉर्मलसी पड़ी जा रही थी बैठ के, जो ऑस्ट्रेलियन बर्ड होती है उसमें कितना क्रोमियम निकल होना चाहिए, लिटरली इट. So you have to decide on normalcy. All right. So I'll finish now. So normalcy is a very interesting research to decide normalcy, to look at what parameter people develop an adverse event. All right. तो ये normalcy abnormalcy की रिसर्च है. डायग्नोसिस की रिसर्च होती है. फ्रीक्वेंसी की रिसर्च तो क्रॉस सेक्शनल है कि भाई कितना फ्रीक्वेंसी नाप लो भाई. यहाँ पे देख लो, हम लोगों ने रिसर्च किया कितना लोग केवल सादा पान मसाला खाते हैं, कितने सादा पान मसाला खाने वालों में प्री कैंसरस ओरल लीजन होते हैं. सब फ्रीक्वेंसी रिसर्च है, इसमें ऑड्स रेशियोस मिल जाते हैं. फिर रिस्क रिसर्च है. दो तरीके की बीमारी होती है, एक मलेरियल पैरासाइट, एक प्लाज्मोडियम वायरस, एक वेक्टर मच्छर और एक बीमारी मलेरिया. उसके ये 12 लक्षण, झाड़ा बुखार, जोड़ी कंबल और सेरेब्रल मलेरिया. एक मल्टी फैक्टोरियल डिजीज है, किसको हार्ट अटैक होगा, किसको हार्ट अटैक होगा, बहुत स्ट्रेसफुल लाइफ होगा, लैक ऑफ एक्सरसाइज होगी, सिडेंट्री हैबिट होगी, जो ओबीज होगा, जिसका बीएमआई बड़ा होगा, जिसको मेटाबॉलिक सिंड्रोम होगा, जिसका कोलेस्ट्रॉल ट्राइग्लिसराइड बड़ा होगा, जिसकी डायबिटीज अनकंट्रोल होगी, जो टोबैको यूज करता होगा. मल्टी फैक्टोरियल डिजीज is the determinants. You have a diagnostic rule. So you create diagnostic rules, and that is a prediction rule that what is a recipe. Like metabolic syndrome today, like waist hip ratio, body weight, sedentary lifestyle, uric acid यहाँ पे, cholesterol यहाँ पे, is the, ठीक है साहब. एक आज आपको पढ़ाएं skewed to the left, skewed to the left, skewed to the right, I beg your pardon, skewed to the right. Skewed to the right समझते हैं आप? यहाँ कितने लोग पॉसिबल हैं जिनकी ब्लड शुगर 400 हो और यहाँ इस समय बैठे क्लास अटेंड कर रहे हैं? Is it possible or not? Possible. Is it possible कि 20 ब्लड शुगर हो बैठ के क्लास पढ़ रहे? डेथ हो जाए, ठीक है ना? That is all biochemical parameters and human beings are skewed to the right. आप 500 कोलेस्ट्रॉल लेके मस्त यहाँ बैठे पड़े, 6 फीट 2 इंच पे कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, 4 फुट 8 इंच पे आपको पौना टिकना सर्कस जाओ एकोंड्रोप्लेजिया 4 फुट 3 इंच पे बताया आपको। सो प्लीज अंडरस्टैंड, इन बायोलॉजी most parameters are skewed to the right. Alright? So you have these researches on treatment, on prevention, on cause, and critical appraisal. You all know, read a paper, appraise it critically. I'll try and finish now. It's already 17. So this I have already said. When you have a research question, when you have a research hypothesis, you look for what are the study variables. क्या क्या आंकड़ा मैं निकालूंगा और देखूंगा आपने, you make a performer. What are my outcome variables and what is my intervention? If you are doing an intervention, then the study is known as experimental. हम चूहे को ये डाइट खिलाएंगे और इस चूहे को ये नहीं खिलाएंगे. When you only do observation, frequency देख रहे हैं, diagnostic test को देख रहे हैं, कितना sensitivity है, कितनी specificity है, क्या likelihood ratio है, क्या ROC कर्व है. ROC कर्व कितने लोग समझते हैं? Have you heard of ROC curve? How many of you have heard of ROC curve? Normalcy का ROC curve कितने लोगों ने सुना है? आपने सुना है? क्या होता है? Receiver operative correction curve, है ना? कि इतने बीच में ये टेस्ट, जिसे आप कोई टेस्ट लगाते हैं ना बायोकेमिस्ट्री, तो लोअर लिमिट तय करते हैं और अपर लिमिट तय करते हैं, उसके बीच में आ जाता है. और TSH 100 के ऊपर भागा है या कोई ट्यूमर मार्कर 500 के ऊपर भागा है, आपने हाईएस्ट 500 लगाया, तो रिपोर्ट में क्या लिखते हो? मोर देन 500, यही तो लिख देते हैं ना. तो आपने जो ROC कर्व लिया है वो लोअर हायर वैल्यू ले ली इसकी, क्योंकि नॉर्मेलिटी इज नॉट अ पॉइंट स्टेटमेंट, नॉर्मेलिटी इज ऑलवेज अ रेंज. ब्लड शुगर के एक पॉइंट एस्टिमेट नहीं है नॉर्मेलिटी. आपकी रिग्रेशन टू द मीन करते हैं ना, आपने सुबह 8 बजे ब्लड शुगर 120 है, फिर आपने कचौड़ी खा ली, नाश्ता कर लिया तो 140 हो गई, फिर दोपहर तक खाना ही नहीं मिला, शाम को 80 हो गई, शाम को आया बहुत भूख लग रही, फिर खा गया. You see, so normalcy is not a point estimate, it is always a range and it regresses to the mean and it has a range. And that range, to determine that range is known as the ROC curve. ROC curve आपको सिंपल तरीके से समझाएं. सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर में झगड़ा हो रहा था, आपने ये वाली कहानी सुनाई थी ना राजेश, हमने तुम लोग तो
सुनाई थी.
तो साउथहैम्पटन में लंदन उन्होंने रडार लगा लिए, फ्रेंच उड़ाते थे और ये अपना नेट उड़ाते थे, फ्रेंच अपना कोई रफाइल टैंक उड़ाते थे, और फ्रेंच सोचते थे जाके लंदन को बॉम्ब करेंगे, ब्रॉम्पटन में बॉम्ब करेंगे, और ये सोचते जाके पेरिस में नॉर्मंडी में बॉम्ब डालेंगे. तो अगर आपने रडार को बहुत फाइन ट्यून कर दिया, और फ्रांस और इंग्लैंड के बीच में ब्रिटिश चैनल है मुश्किल से 60 किलोमीटर की 40 मील, तो सीगल भी उड़ेगी तो चू बोलने लगेगा रडार. आप सॉटी ले लेंगे, आपके 20 मिनट से उड़ जाएंगे कि हम एयर टू एयर हम बैक करें, तो आपकी जो सॉटी है वो बेकार हो जाएगी, क्योंकि आपके पायलट उड़ जाएंगे. और आपने उसे कम ट्यून कर दिया जो रडार है, तो जल्दी से घुसेगा, कबड्डी 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 बम मारेगा, पीछे आएगा. यू गेट द पॉइंट. तो रडार को कितने साइज पे हम ट्यून करें, कितनी हाइट पे ट्यून करें, और तो हम क्या क्या कैलकुलेट करें? हम कैलकुलेट करेंगे कि हमारे बंकर से निकल के हमारे पायलट्स को नेट में बैठने में इतना टाइम लगता है, एयरबोर्न होने में इतना टाइम लगता है, रडार बजने के बाद इतनी देर में वो चैनल का 40 किलोमीटर क्रॉस कर लेते हैं, तब जाके एयर टू एयर कम बैक करेंगे. तो हमारे लंदन में, हमारे शहर में ये उस टाइम ये ROC कर्व का ये इतिहास है, जिसको मेडिकल साइंस ने अडॉप्ट कर लिया. स्टैटिस्टिक्स का जो इतिहास है वो भी स्कॉटलैंड से आया, बैरल गिनने से, जो गणिताई 0.005 जो आप कहते हैं. So you should read, these are very interesting incidences in epidemiology. तो जो आप ट्यून कर रहे हो कि ये हम लोअर लिमिट रखेंगे या अपर लिमिट रखेंगे, बायोलॉजिकल पैरामीटर की, वो उसकी ROC है. receiver operating characteristic है. Alright? So where do I tune so that I get this parameter? Alright? म्यू में और मीन में फर्क समझते हैं आप? म्यू इज द पॉपुलेशन मीन. इस बेंच पे जितने लोग बैठे हैं, 22 लोग बैठे हैं, 22 का ब्लड शुगर लेके 22 से भाग दे, 22 को जोड़ दे, तो मीन आ जाएगा सिग्मा x अपॉन n इज इक्वल टू x बार. दैट इज द अरिथमेटिक मीन. Sigma x is the summation of the blood sugar of all the people sitting here divided by the number of people sitting here and you get the x bar. Alright sir? What is a mu? Mu is the population mean. पूरे भारत का ब्लड शुगर कैसे निकालेंगे? पूरे भारत के हर व्यक्ति का, आदमियों का अलग, बच्चों का अलग, एडल्ट्स का अलग, 18 साल के कैसे निकालेंगे? किसी ने अगर हाइपोथेसिस दे दी कि साउथ अफ्रीकन प्रजाति से भारतीय प्रजाति का ब्लड शुगर 20 मिलीग्राम ज्यादा होता है और मीन देख लीजिए, कोई कह रहा है करिए, आपको मंत्री जी ने बुलाया कि ये रिसर्च कर दीजिए, आपको बुलाया तो ये रिसर्च करके दीजिए कि मोबाइल से, टावर से कैंसर हो रहा है, तो 4 करोड़ रुपया ले लीजिए, दे दीजिए. ऐसे हमारे आज तक ये IIT बॉम्बे ने करी, हालांकि उसको बहुत बायस मैंने करी, because I scratched my mind and couldn't find it. कितनी दूरी पर रख रहा है, कितनी दार रख रहा है, अलग अलग मोबाइल में अलग अलग रेडिएशन है, टावर से कितनी दूर है, टावर तो घर के बगल में रहता है, ड्यूटी करता है बाहर, घर में 2 घंटे को आता है, बीवी को कैंसर हुआ नहीं, हस्बैंड को हो गया. You know, there were lots of confounders. It wasn't easy to do that research. So, mu is the population. A population mean is always estimated with a confidence interval of 95% and 98%. You do multi-sampling, you do standard deviation of the sample, standard error of the multiple samples, and you calculate the population mean with a confidence of 98 or 95%. That is the population mean. You understand that? इतने concept जब आप सीखने लगोगे, इतना मजा आने लगेगा कि आप रिसर्च करने लगोगे. So I'll finish here because I can see the time I finish. I'll quickly run these slides. तो स्टडी क्या है? ऑब्जर्वेशनल है जब आप कुछ नहीं कर रहे हैं. एक्सपेरिमेंटल है जो कि लेबोरेटरी की है, जिसमें डॉक्टर अब्बास बोलेंगे. क्लिनिकल ट्रायल्स है, फील्ड ट्रायल्स है कि ये वाली वैक्सीन दे फील्ड में, ये वाली दे, कि साफ दे, कि सेपन दे, कि ओरल वैक्सीन दे पोलियो की, इंट्रामस्कुलर वैक्सीन दे पोलियो. इसको छोड़ देते हैं, इसको नहीं पढ़िए, ये सब मत पढ़िए. लास्ट स्लाइड दिखा. रैंडमाइज्ड ट्रायल अगर आप लोग खुद पढ़िएगा तो आपको लास्ट स्लाइड. प्रैक्टिस और रिसर्च में क्या फर्क है? What you're doing today is practice. What I am here today is to tell you to do research over and above your practice. You cannot do research without your practice. Clinical, medical research. You have to be doing your regular job that you learn. Practice uses knowledge, research creates knowledge. Practice states what? क्या करना है? आज ये 3 ऑपरेशन करना है. कैसे करेंगे, क्यों ये वाला ऑपरेशन करेंगे, रिसर्च. चाहे छोटी सी रिसर्च है, चाहे बड़ी रिसर्च है. आज रैंडम नंबर खुलेगा, आज एब्डोमिनल क्लोजर में क्रॉस वाली स्टिच लगानी है क्योंकि ये रैंडम काट कह रहा है और ये ट्रायल का मरीज है और ये एथिकली क्लियर RAB का क्लियर ट्रायल. दैट्स व्हाट रिसर्च इज. शॉर्ट में हो जाता है, थोड़े टाइम में हो जाता है, लॉन्ग टाइम में होता है. प्रैक्टिस का रिवार्ड इमीडिएट है, सुबह ऑपरेट करिए अपेंडिक्स, शाम को 20,000 रुपए लेके घर आ जाए. रिसर्च का रिवार्ड बहुत लेट मिलता है लेकिन बहुत बड़ा मिलता है. प्रैक्टिस में ये हमारे बॉस है, बहुत अथॉरिटी. रिसर्च चैलेंजेस अथॉरिटी. बॉस आप कहते तो ये है लेकिन ये ठीक नहीं. प्रैक्टिस फॉलोज कस्टम कि हमारे यहाँ ये होता है ना, हमारे यहाँ ये पूजा होती है. Research challenges customs. Practice earns revenue. Research earns reputation. Practice stimulates research. Research enriches practice. And that's how I finish. Thank you. 5 minutes, I'll be able to answer those questions.
I think something wonderful, amazing, so crystal clear. I'm sure you all might have enjoyed this journey of research, and I'm sure this is going further in our institution. Now coming to the another legendary figure in our town, Dr. Abbas Ali Mehri. He currently is the head department biochemistry and member of examinations KGNU. Believe me, I have seen him from last many years, and he has never said no to any responsibility. And that's such a wonderful feeling he has got, I can't tell you. And he was the ex-vice chancellor, RAB University, and all those things. I think my he is the editor-in-chief member of editorial board of many scientific journals. उन्होंने 26 PhD, 200 MD स्टूडेंट सब कुछ कराया।
दो चीज़ें हैं तो डॉक्टर संदीप कुमार के इंटरेस्टिंग एंड बॉम्बास्टिक लेक्चर के बाद में बोलना इट्स अ वेरी टफ टास्क फॉर मी एंड he has very lucidly and very nicely covered I think most of the things what our initiator has to do and what research, how to initiate research. That all he has covered very nicely, and the way he covers it. So for me, the task is really very difficult, and I'm not going to take much time. I know that post lunch, it's very difficult to concentrate for a long period of time, and I'll not bore you also. But just few things. I'm basically a lab person, as Dr. Sandeep Kumar has very rightly pointed out, and I've been doing research. We all do research for last, I think, around 37 years. When I started my journey, I was initiated to do research. He was talking about malaria. So initially I was working. I'll just tell you an interesting thing, that how things evolve. In his journey, he has told very nicely that how things evolve. And just tell a brief incident that I was given a topic to isolate and characterize soluble antigens of Plasmodium falciparum from the culture medium to use it as a vaccine. At that time, in 80s, malaria vaccine was a fascination, and everybody was whoever was working in astrology, they was interested in working for a vaccine. So I started with it. And then what happened, that I cultured the Plasmodium falciparum. It was difficult, maintain the culture, collect the culture medium with which the antigen was released, and to extract the antigen. That was a task which was given, and by HPLC, a separate scholar was required, and that gel which was required was not available anywhere in India. And at that time, in the 1980s, it was not that easy to get it from abroad also, but somehow we tried and we couldn't get it. In the meantime, one of my friends was working on malaria, but in monkeys. And there, what happened that in monkey there is a Plasmodium lollizi which corresponds to what Vivax is there. And when the infection was initiated in the monkey, usually it happens that in 14 days the parastemia reaches a certain height, then you can extract the blood, isolate the parasite, extract the antigen, and use it whatever way you want to use it for vaccination and all that. But when we inoculated the infection in the monkey, 5th day, 6th day, they used to die. And we were surprised initially because the animal house was in a outer area. We thought that some snake may have penetrated in the animal house and it might have bitten the monkey, and that's why the monkeys died. But it happened twice or thrice. So one day while returning from that animal house, I just thought, why don't we get it, the toxicity of the monkey? And my father was in anatomy. So I asked the technician over there that one monkey was about to die, to take it, perfuse it, and make a slice of its liver, spleen, and brain, and let's see. And then I went to a pathologist who was in the histopathology of the parasites and all that, and shown him the slide. He said it's very interesting. All the capillaries of the brain are filled with parasite, and even I am seeing the parasite in the glial cells, which is not reported anywhere. And it's a very interesting novel finding. And can you do one more study with 5 monkeys and let's see there? So then again I came to Lucknow and took up the W1 strain of the Plasmodium and we again inoculated it, and again the monkeys, 3 monkeys died on 6th day. We performed the autopsy, took the samples and analyzed the brain, and there we found that all was because what happens that just like falciparum, they express certain proteins which makes the RBC sticky. They clump together, they bind together as well as they stick to the walls of the epithelium, and that's why they block the blood flow, and that's what the pathology starts, and that's why for example, the falciparum malaria, the cerebral malaria occurs. It's because of the impairment in the physical flow of the blood leading to hypoxia, lactic acidosis, and the pathology there. So that's what happened here. So we thereafter, but no, that research stopped. The isolation of soluble antigen and all that, because we couldn't get the gel, we couldn't perform the SPLC, so that was stopped. And core topic from there landed to investigating conversion of W1 strain of malaria parasite from being the normal parasite to aggressive one and causing cerebral malaria and leading to the deaths in the, and that's what we investigated. We carried out the histopathological studies. When we sent the paper, they find it very novel. Masamichi Aikawa was one of the most famous histopathologist of from Japan. He was in America and he was editor of American Journal of Tropical Medicine and Hygiene. He said, the study is so startling, the finding is so nice, not so novel, but we need to prove it, and that's why you go in for electron microscopy. So I was a biochemist. From starting with the histopathology, I went in for electron microscopy, then we performed electron microscopy, and that's how we proven, and that paper was ultimately published in Journal of Infectious Diseases, a series of papers published, and that became a history because in that we for the first time reported ocular pathology. Also we did the histopathology and electron microscopy of the ultrastructural studies of the eye also, and we found very interesting. So that's how it's a passion which has to be there, and your inquisitiveness has to be there, which is required to initiate our work. And what is very rightly Dr. Sandeep Kumar Sahab has very rightly pointed out, that you have to be very cautious. Suddenly, Apple सबने गिरते देखा, मगर अगर वो उसमें इन्वॉल्व ना होता, सिमिलरली ट्रैकिंग ऑफ द जेनेटिक कोड, अब कहते हैं कि व्हाट्सएप में ट्रिक में चुरा लिया वो, सारा आइडिया they were there, they were working, they were always involved, and you can very well understand a cracking of the DNA, the code जो है, how it has transformed whole medicine and biology. Total transformation. When I was a student, I used to read in BSc that American Red Cross has to spend $6 billion to obtain sufficient amount of interferon to treat 6 patients. $6 billion to obtain sufficient amount of interferon to treat 6 patients. And now, with the use of recombinant DNA technology, you can produce all the interferons. He was talking about the treatment of cancer using the antibodies and interferons. That all is available in the market now, thanks to the technique of the genetic code, and that's how it evolved. Similarly, production of the insulin. Earlier, for treatment of diabetes, either pig or horse, insulin was used. There were Jews and Muslims, they were a bit apprehensive about using the pig insulin, but now human insulin is available, and that too, that interferon now is available in less than $1. The cost of an interferon for the treatment which is available in the market is about $1, and American get across in 1980 has to spend billions of dollars to obtain it to treat the costs. It was difficult to extract it from the serum, and unethical means were used because they used the serum of the soldiers from the Thailand war, from the Vietnamese war, and from that they isolated interferon. And that's why they have to spend so much amount of money. So things are changing because of research and basic and fundamental biomedical research. And being in a medical institution, because not only the treatment aspect, we are also the teachers here. And for a teacher, it is important to acquire knowledge, first of all, then to disseminate knowledge. That's another thing कि आपको स्टूडेंट्स को पढ़ाना है, जो आपने एक्वायर किया वो पढ़ाएंगे. But third and most important thing for a teacher is to create knowledge, as Dr. Sandeep Kumar has shown in the last slide. And that creation of knowledge is by doing research. And that's why for a medical teacher, I think it's very important and vital not only to acquire knowledge, but also to create knowledge. And for that, research has to be a passion. Research has to, it's frustrating. I was talking to Shwasaji just before the function, and he said that it's frustrating. Sometimes it becomes very frustrating. Nowadays, because you need money for doing any basic research, you need not. Some research out there, you need not have any that much amount of money. But if you are going for some tests, some investigations, some animals, some equipments, certain chemicals, kits, all that is requires money. So to acquire that, to get that, difficult. Perseverance has to be there. Persuasion has to be there. Continuous efforts has to be made. Then only then you can get. And nowadays it has become more difficult to get funds, especially from the government funding agencies. But those who make efforts, they do get efforts. Just last week I was in PGH Chandigarh in biochemistry department. From ICMA, they got 10 projects more than 50 lakhs in one department. And that's कोई बहुत आउट ऑफ बॉक्स कोई चीज नहीं कर रहे थे. फैसिलिटीज है, टैग है इंस्टीट्यूशन का, आपका नया इंस्टीट्यूशन है, यू हैव टू मेक मोर एफर्ट्स. बट इफ यू मेक एफर्ट्स यू विल गेट फंड्स. Things are changing also, as I was talking to Dr. Srivastava while coming here, that now in the West, especially in America and Europe, funding is maximally from the private sector. Government funding is reducing there also. And that is job based, that is task based, because whatever the molecule they want to get investigated, like for example, sometimes the keyboard sends certain keys, key जो production होता है कि इसका आप देखिए कि इसका effect क्या हो रहा है. They fund it, they give you money, get it, roll in, for example, in hyperlipidemia, in diabetes. सिटी में ये सब कीबोर्ड का प्रोजेक्ट था. इस जमाने में हम जाते थे, जिस लैब में जाइए वहां मान लो चाय बन रही है. और वो क्या है, कभी चूहों को पिलाई जा रही है, कभी रैबिट्स को पिलाई जा रही है, कभी किसी को पिलाई जा रही है. उस पर कोई लिपिड प्रोफाइल देख रहा है उसका, कोई इसका एनर्जिकल प्रोफाइल देख रहा है. तो ये होने लगा है, माइया भी हो रहा है. बट अभी भी वी कैन गो इन फॉर गवर्नमेंट फंडिंग, एंड देयर आर सो मेनी एजेंसीज starting from in UP CST to ICMR, BST, DBT, SERP. They all, if there is a good idea, if the concept is good, and moreover, interdepartmental, intra-departmental, intra-institutional, inter-institutional collaborations is very important. जब तक आप रिसर्च में हैंडशेकिंग नहीं करेंगे, तब तक आपको अच्छे आइडियाज को प्रोपोगेट करने में डिफिकल्टी होगी. तो यू हैव टू हैव, ये नहीं कि आप आइडिया लिए अपने पास बैठे हैं. यू मस्ट डिस्कस इट विद योर कलीग्स, बोथ विद इन द डिपार्टमेंट एंड आउटसाइड द डिपार्टमेंट, विद इन द इंस्टीट्यूशन एंड आउटसाइड द इंस्टीट्यूशन, टू गेट द आइडिया फ्लरिश्ड एंड डेवलप्ड एंड इनिशिएटेड. एंड इट्स नॉट दैट डिफिकल्ट. और those who are there in the medical field, I think on daily basis we get so many things, so many new cases. आप स्टार्ट कर सकते हो केस रिपोर्ट से. starting to write about the case reports, certain things which you observe, certain observational studies you can do, certain epidemiological studies you can do, and the basic departments like anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, pathology, microbiology, pharmacology, they all can start with the basic research. And that is also very vital and important. Whether they are the animal experiments, they are also very important because so many things we get outcomes from the animal experiments, as I told you that about the malaria research, which I initiated, and that was done because of the use of the animals. And things, in spite of the fact that so much difficulties are there because of the ethical committees, whether it's the human ethics committee or the animal ethics committee, there are difficulties. उसमें सब में आपको फ्रस्ट्रेटेड बनने का फ्रस्ट्रेशन बहुत होता है, फ्रस्ट्रेशन होगा उसमें भी, कि आप एनिमल एथिक्स कमेटी में आपको जाना पड़ेगा तो बहुत सारे चीजों का ख्याल रखना पड़ेगा कि कितने एनिमल्स लिए, कौन से एनिमल्स लिए, ये एनिमल यूज कर सकते हैं, ये एनिमल नहीं यूज कर सकते हैं। अगर आप ह्यूमन सब्जेक्ट्स में जा रहे हैं तो उसमें भी एथिक्स कमेटी है, दे विल क्रिटिकली इवैल्यूएट योर आइडिया, योर कॉन्सेप्ट, योर प्रोजेक्ट, एवरीथिंग, और वो ऑब्जेक्शंस करेंगे एंड यू हैव टू आंसर दैट। तो उसमें फ्रस्ट्रेशन होता है कि हमने ये किया था, उन्हें रिजेक्ट कर दिया, उन्हें क्यों क्वेश्चन कर लिया, बट दैट्स हाउ यू लर्न, दैट्स हाउ यू प्रोग्रेस, एंड दैट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एंड वाइटल इन टुडेज लाइफ एंड सो मच सोशल मीडिया एंड ऑल दैट इज देयर कि आप कोई अनएथिकल चीज ना करें, उससे न सिर्फ आपकी बदनामी होगी बल्कि इंस्टीट्यूशन की बदनामी होगी। सो चेक एंड बैलेंसेस आर टू बी देयर एंड दैट्स व्हाई the importance and significance of the ethical committees, whether they are the animal ethics committee or it's the human ethics committee, that is very important and vibrant ethics committee is very important, so as to ensure that whatever the practices which you are going to apply in your work are ethical and no unethical work is carried out, and everything has to be reported and recorded, and that has to be shown to the person who comes for checking it. And similarly for the students, I must say that log books are very important. You must maintain your log books. Proper maintenance of the log books is very important. Maintenance of the case sheets is very important. Case records is very important. Whatever the consent forms you have taken for recruiting the patients, maintenance of that consent form, making of the proper consent form is very important. I'll tell you a very interesting thing, sir. Nowadays what happens, somebody was telling me from SEPJ last week only, that we North Indians, in spite of knowing Hindi, we use Google to translate the consent form from English to Hindi. और उसमें एक बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग चीज थी, ये एक स्टडी में उनको न्यूक्लियर फैमिली, इंग्लिश में लिखा था न्यूक्लियर फैमिलीज का स्टडी दिखा रहे थे, उसको उन्होंने गूगल किया और गूगल ने क्या लिख दिया उसको, परमाणु परिवार, और वो एथिकल फॉर्म में वही लिखा हुआ था। इत्तेफाक की बात मेरे पास रिव्यू होने आया हिंदी में लिखा था, तो न्यूक्लियर फैमिली को उसने कन्वर्ट करके परमाणु परिवार कर दिया गूगल ने, न्यूक्लियर को परमाणु कर दिया, फैमिली को परिवार कर दिया। तो इस तरह से गूगल कभी यूज ना कीजिए। अगर आप कंसेंट फॉर्म बना रहे हो इंग्लिश हिंदी में, लोकल डायलेक्ट में आपको चाहिए होता है, तो यू मस्ट यूज योर ओन माइंड while translating from English to Hindi your consent forms, and it is very important for the supervisors also, because we blindly sign without seeing into the intricacies of it. अच्छा, फिर similarly the consent किससे लिया जा रहा है? If you are going to take the consent from that minor or invalid person, वहाँ पे आप लैंग्वेज कैसे यूज करोगे, वहाँ आई और माइल आप यूज करोगे, तो वो सब चीजें भी you have to see while checking the, आप लोग सब पीजी का स्टार्ट करोगे, सुपरवाइजर होगे, को सुपरवाइजर होगे, उसमें जहां कंसेंट फॉर्म की बात है, आमतौर से ये होता है कि लोकल डायलेक्ट जब होता है तो गूगल करके उसको ट्रांसलेट कर लिया जाता है और उसमें ये टाइप के हॉगर्स हो जाते हैं, एंड दैट बिकम्स वेरी एम्बैरेसिंग अल्टीमेटली फॉर द पर्सन कंसर्न एंड द कमिटी आल्सो टू पॉइंट आउट सच मिस्टेक्स. So my basic message to all the youngsters is that you must be inquisitive, you must try to think rationalistically, talk about, and always that's better that when the student comes to the supervisor with an idea, with a concept, and supervisor helps and facilitates in modifying it, in making it more meaningful, and that's how the student is interested in that topic, and then he can initiate the work and come to a logical conclusion. That is very vital and important. And for that, reading is very important, being aware is very important, continuous interactions is very important, discussions are very important, and then only then you can come to a interesting research topic, and then you can formulate it and conceptualize it and do it. So I think that this initiative that Dr. Sunil has taken to initiate inquisitiveness in the youngsters and as also the faculty. And I said that for faculty especially, doing so much work simultaneously, you have to perform the lab work, clinical work, supervisions, examinations, inspections and all that. And to do research simultaneously becomes a bit cumbersome. But take it as a passion. Take it as a thing for you in a long run to help and facilitate you in your logistic thinking, in helping others, and in getting certain amount of satisfaction when getting your work published in good journals. And that is very important and vital ultimately for an academician, not only to be inquisitive, not only to be just coming and giving lectures to the students, but also to have certain amount of knowledge imparted in a way that you have done this work, you have worked on this concept and produced such results which are going to be beneficial for the society at large in a larger extent. So my best wishes, and I am sure that our association will be beneficial for both you and for us also to learn and experience new things, and my best wishes for them. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. I think I really request our director, principal sir.
Today is a great day for TS Mr. Medical College and Hospitals. We have so senior, we are very fortunate to have so senior, so research oriented persons are with us. I think our faculty and our students must be benefited by their talk. So research is a continuous process, and there must be some idea, something is there, and that idea must be fulfilled, and that must be documented also. If you have any idea, any research work, any result is there, documentation, and that it should be just given to the society, to the fraternity, how they can benefit from that. So documentation is equally important, and luckily we have a DSIR registration with the zero, and we have a good ethics committee, and also we have some senior faculty, they can guide our postgraduates. And when we will require any more guidance, I think Dr. Sandeep Kumar and Dr. Abbas maybe both are with us, and they will guide you. I think the future of TS Misra is quite imminent, and you all with the guidance of the faculty and teachers, you can do your good research. We are getting quite late, so thank you for this talk, and thank you for the
Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Rachna Sharma, Assistant Professor, Department of Biochemistry, and Member Secretary in the Research Advisory Board at the TS Mishra Medical College and Hospital. I welcome you all. We at TSM really thank our Chairman, Research Advisory Board, Dr. Sandeep Kumar sir, and in spite of his extremely busy schedule, he could spare time for promoting research at our institution, and his guidance on how to get started with research and outline of research strategy are really going to be a milestone for our institution, and we are also looking forward for his guidance in the extramural funding, sir. And my sincere thanks to Dr. Abbas Ali Mehdi sir, and his very informative talk will be a real guiding source for our faculty, and will certainly give lead to our PG students to excel in their projects and research. We are grateful to our dynamic visionary principal dean sir for giving unconditional support as always for organizing this research advisory board meeting. We would like to thank our management who is always supportive for all our academic and research activities. Next, it is important to say thank you to all the respected research advisory board members and all faculty members for showing their interest in participation in this RAB meeting. And I'm very much thankful to the PG participants as their presence, as with their presence, a right message has been passed on to the right students who I strongly believe will take full advantage of all learnings for their benefit as well as for the patient and society at large. I wish to thank all the supporting staff, Mrs. Sharad ji, Nikhil and everyone who is taking care of all the organizing system here and for the sincere efforts at all levels. Last but not the least, I am highly thankful to the Professor Sudhir Kumar Goyal sir, Professor in Biochemistry, Vice Chairman Research Advisory Board, Director Research for taking initiative to organize this long-awaited Research Advisory Board meeting at TS Mishra Medical College and Hospital. His real leadership qualities could get us zero recognition, you all know. So that now onwards we will be able to submit extramural plans. And so thanks at last, thanks a lot to each and everyone for participating here and making it a successful one. Thank you.
I think nothing more there. So I request all the persons present here, please take your little refreshment because I thought to do it together, but don't miss that. Thank you very much for your participation.